topic of the class today is critical thinking skills, or critical thinking. Critical thinking. Now, you have the handout there that I emailed you and I handed some copies out. So without looking at that, has anybody heard this term before?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, you've heard this term before and it's used, right? But I want you to, we're going to understand it today and it's actually going to help you in your career, in ethics and professional decision making. But it's also a terminology that you're going to use and understand because you're going to impress with that. You're going to impress people who know what it means, and you're going to impress people who don't know what it means because they're going to ask you, what does that mean? So, if you know what this means, if you've heard it before, what is critical thinking? What does that mean, critical thinking?
To actively participate in what you're doing and applying it.
Actively participate in what you're doing. Yes? Yes, sir?
It doesn't mean criticize, it means analogical view.
It means there is an analytical component to it, but I need to be more specific when it comes to that. Well, go ahead.
Thinking outside the box.
What?
Thinking outside the box.
Actually, it's opposite of that.
Really? I don't think it's a process.
It is a process, yes. But also, when I say here, it's a skill. So we'll put that on there, that we have that. It's a skill. And like any other skill, it's something when you do it, you get better at it. Okay? So, any other input about what it means? What is critical thinking skills?
Ability to think clearly and rationally.
That's close if you combine a couple of things there together. Go ahead.
I'm just pulling it off of this.
Don't pull it off of that. Don't pull it off of that. I'm asking what you've heard about it. But go ahead.
I think it's like a knowledge pack process of applying that knowledge to a specific goal.
Okay, so you're just making this up as you're going along? Okay, no, but that's very insightful. That's very insightful. Okay? So I'm going to erase this here. Okay? It's too big. Critical thinking or critical thinking skills is thinking, what some of you said. Maria, I think you touched on it, thinking about can you get that on camera? Critical thinking skills or critical thinking is about thinking about your thinking.
I like that.
Okay? I'm so happy.
I know.
I spent hours and hours and hours planning these lectures and doing the research and the printouts and emails, and I had a PowerPoint that I'm not going to show, and you like it.
I know. I know. It's all right.
It's all worthwhile, folks. It's all worthwhile.
True.
Yeah, Dave.
Yes, sir. That sounds like psychology.
Oh, well, it is here. Well, psychology is thinking about you. Yeah, it is a psychological. It's more of a philosophical, an ethical. It's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff.
That's what he said before. Thinking about your thinking is analyzing the way you think.
Yes, analyze, because you started to touch on that. Analyze, analytical, yes, because critical is analytical. But it's not critically analyzing when you said thinking outside the box. When someone said that, thinking outside the box, you just think outside the box. So you're critically analyzing and thinking outside the box. No, you're critically analyzing and you're thinking inside the box. Okay? You're examining and analyzing your own thought process, when we said process. So, if anybody asks you, what is critical thinking is thinking about your thinking. So it's analyzing how you think something through to get a you know, like with creative problem solving, ethical decision making, personal decision making, any type of decision making, there's a process, a skill that you go through to come to the conclusion. Okay? In that process, that skill, we're going to cover it. We're going to cover it in that handout you have. Okay? So there's 3 components to critical thinking. And here I put it on there. Critical thinking as a process, and as a process, a skill, the more you do it, the better you get at it. Just like documentation, just like counseling, just like anything. But if you use this process, you will get better at something. So there's 3 components. One is behavioral. 2 is effective. And 3 is cognitive. So, of critical thinking, the critical thinking process, there's 3 components. One is behavioral, one is effective, and one is cognitive. So, if you were to see this on an exam,
Wink, wink.
which is not a component of critical thinking skills, and we had in here withdrawal. Okay? Or thinking outside the box. Okay? Alright, or something like that. Or something like that. If, you know, if you saw that in the exam, right? Now listen, you're supposed to be writing exam questions too, so you can write exam questions, but that could be an exam question. Okay? So let's just look at those. Let's look at those components individually. Okay, if you go to the list here. So let's just rattle them off. You can read. Now look, this is something you're going to keep. You're going to study. It's going to explain it in more detail from the textbook. Who said psychology? Because this was a psychology textbook that I took in psychology. This is from a psychology textbook. The whole book is written like that. That's where I got first turned on to this as an undergrad a long time ago. But the whole book was written to incorporate critical thinking skills in the course. So, plus, because I was interested, I just wasn't interested in psychology. I was interested in philosophy and sociology as well. So I took philosophy, sociology. So this is a psychology textbook was written for you to sharpen your critical thinking skills. Each chapter there was you know, little boxes and things that you read, and answers and questions that you had to do to polish your critical thinking skills. And it explains it in more details. Okay, but so read that. Okay, to learn more about each of these components, study the list. They present effective emotional. So this is what we have. Okay, so let's just look at the behavioral components. Who'd like to read that first one there?
Delaying judgment until adequate data is available.
Okay, delaying judgment until adequate data is available. Now, this is something that critical thinkers do, and this is something that I do. I do not make snap judgments. I do not make snap decisions, right? Did I teach that in the military? Because in the military, you make a snap decision, you can get people killed, you know, right? So, you delay your judgment until you've collected adequate data to make that decision.
Gather intel.
Right? Gather intel, okay? Right. And don't say, okay, come on guys, let's go, you know? Or even when somebody will say something to you and you make a snap decision like that, that's not good. Critical thinkers don't do that. Or when we get to this emotional stuff, can emotions affect your behavior?
Absolutely.
Okay? Can your emotions affect your actions? Yes, okay, so you got to keep that in check too, because, like for me, for example, I don't like to talk about myself. I'm a sensitive guy. I'm sensitive. I am. And sometimes, I have to think things through before I, can make a decision. Because if I make a decision based on my emotions, my feelings are like that, I have to be sure I'm correct, right? So I think it through, and then I can make a decision about, what's the right thing to do. And I'll say, and I'll say something sensitive if it makes a point. And then she could say, you're an idiot. Where do you get this stuff from? But no, I think things through. I don't make snap decisions based on my feelings or emotions. Do people do that? Do you guys do that? Have you done that? It can work out bad. It can be the wrong decision. And it can affect a lot of things and work out bad for you. So, delaying judgment, just hit the brakes. I do that. Takes practice. What's the other one?
Employing precise terms.
What does that mean? What does that mean, employing precise terms?
Make sure you have the information correctly before you make a decision.
Yeah, no, be specific.
Concrete language.
Yeah, be specific, okay? Precise terms helps critical thinkers identify the issue and clearly and concretely so that they can be objectively defined and empirically tested. So you want to, don't be ambiguous. Be precise. Be specific. Don't waffle. Gathering data, again, number 3, you get data. Because data can change. Information can change. Facts can change. Science can change. Here's one of my favorites. Who wants to read that one?
Distinguishing fact from opinion.
Right. That's one of my favorites. You have to be able to distinguish fact from opinion. Because people will tell you, like we see in politics and that. And this is, look, when I talk to you about nonverbal cues and body language, and this is the language that they use, somebody will say something, and somebody, could be a politician, could be a conveyor. He says, well, the fact of the matter is, and then they tell a lie. Okay? They say,
I love that.
the fact of the matter is, they say, well, John, they'll say something, well, John, the fact of the matter is, and then they'll tell a lie, or they'll make something up to contradict what the other person said. Totally made up. Happens all the time. People do it, not just on TV, not just politicians, regular people do that, or they'll just say, you give them a fact that's absolutely true, scientific, says, I don't believe that. Don't believe it. I don't believe that. I believe this. Now look, the fact of the matter is, and here's another one that they do that makes it sound more important. I don't believe that. That's not true. The fact of the matter is 1, blah, 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 no lie, blah, blah. 2, something made up. But the fact that they go 1, 2, 3 makes them sound organized. Makes them sound like they know what they're talking about. And it's totally made up for most part. Or it's based on some bogus information that they have, from something that non-scientific information that they have. Okay, so critical thinkers don't do that. You're able to distinguish fact from opinion, and you only give facts. You don't rattle off opinions. I don't teach you opinions in this class, and in our other CDC classes. I show evidence-based scientific research of what works and what's most successful and what doesn't work, based on that statistical data, and it's statistically significant. It's been tested, and they test this stuff, and we know what works, like motivational interviewing, motivational time retention. I study, I read all of this stuff. So yeah, they will.
Yes, sir. How about inference? That's like it was like an educated guess from experience, or
well, our hypothesis.
yeah.
Okay, so you're collecting data, even in a hypothesis, which is an educated guess, or you get information, test it, and say, okay, this could work. Let's test it to see if it does or doesn't.
Okay.
But you're not just saying, hey, the moon is made out of cheese. You're not just making up stuff. You're coming up with, ideas and getting a little more stuff, reading up on it, and you're coming up with a hypothesis. Okay, so what's the next one there?
encouraging critical dialogue.
I love this, okay? You want to encourage that. You want to encourage speaking in critical terms with other people who have other information. Do not be afraid to talk with and engage people who are on the other side of your belief system, whatever it is. Democrat, Republican, this one, that one. You want to hear critical dialogue. You want to discuss, and don't be afraid to be open to that, even if the person's an idiot. It's okay. And I keep telling you the time, Mr. Rule, we know what we're doing, we've been doing this a very long time, and just because you've been doing something for a long time, you could be doing it wrong for a long time, and not realize that it's wrong, but you've been doing it for a long time. Just because someone has been doing therapy or counseling or anything in a specific way for a long time doesn't mean that it's the correct way to do it, or there could be other data, there could be other information, could be other science, other research, that how you can improve and upgrade. But anybody thinks they don't need to be improved, I don't need to improve, is a danger to this field, okay?
It could be something that you've been doing for a long time, may not be wrong. It's
Okay.
just may be old, and the new information you're talking about
Correct.
brings it more.
Correct. So critical thinkers are open to that new information. Open, and there's another part in here, like that you would be, you want to be a little flexible when it comes to new information, because new information could be readily available. And I'm going to give you other stuff about new information. I'm giving you information a lot of times in this class that I've only found out recently. A lot of times I'm watching the news and I'm watching all kinds of stuff, so I know if something new comes up. Okay, so this is another one of my favorites, and I teach you this in counseling. What's that? Active listening, and we did that in the CDC 235 basic counseling. To be a good counselor, you have to be able to active listening. And briefly, active listening is you're not thinking about what your response is going to be. You're just taking in the information that the person is sharing with you, who's usually sitting across in a chair across from you. If you're listening to what every word that they say, and not thinking about what you're going to say in a response. And that's a good communication skill, because most of the time people are saying something and you're not listening because you're thinking of your response. As soon as they're done, you say, oh yeah? Well, what about the time on Thanksgiving 2 years ago over at Uncle John's house when you got drunk? They talk about something 2 years ago, in defense. Oh yeah? Well, what about when you, and then, you're smiling.
It's absolutely true.
That's absolutely true. I studied this.
I just like the way you role play it.
Yeah, all right, well, that happens. No, active listening is something when somebody says something, you say, okay, I heard what you said, and you mirror that back to them. You reflect that back to them to let them know that you heard them, and they know that they were heard. And what did that PowerPoint with Carl Rogers say? When somebody feels like they've been heard, that feels damn good. Okay? So in counseling, that is a very important counseling skill, but it's a skill in any type of communication. Okay, this is what we were just talking about, Earl. What was the next one there? Read it after active listening.
Modifying judgments in the light of new information.
He's a flip-flopper.
Nope.
He flipped. Right? No. There's no... If you get new information, and you want to modify your judgment based on new information, new relevant, important information, you have to be open to that. Critical thinkers are open to new information and are able to modify their position on what's right, what works. Like you just said, there's some new information. The old way was good, but now there's some new stuff that we could better improve that, and you have to be open to that. Not closed-minded. We've been doing this a very long time. We know what we're doing. We don't need it. We don't care what other programs are doing. We only care what this program is doing. Okay, so this is okay. And then the last one is applying knowledge to new situations. So you've got new data, you've got new information, you've got new skills, and you're going to apply that to a new situation. Here's the situation. You're going to bring everything that you have into that new situation to critically analyze it and figure out what's the best thing. In most cases, what's the best thing for our patients. What's the most best, effective treatment for them? Because remember, there are many pathways to recovery. There's not just this or that, okay? I want to be open to that stuff, okay?
That's how the DSM-4 became the DSM-5.
Right. And when I say it to people, say, we know what we're doing. I say, oh, you know about the DSM-5? You say, there's a new DSM-5, a new DSM-5 coming out. And I remember I told you the DSM-5 is written with the number 5, right?
Yeah.
I still see people writing DSM-5. Okay? That's wrong. I mean, imagine it's the DSM-5. They say, we want, I get email, can you give me some information on the DSM-5? You're writing it like that. I send it back the first time like that, well, there's no such book back. There's no such book.
Title's wrong.
The title's wrong.
I
And,
heard they do
and, and I told you, they changed it from Roman
5-0.
numerals to the number 5 because they wanted to be more modern. Bring it into the modern era. Using Roman numerals was old-fashioned. Not going to use Roman numerals in the diagnostic statistical manual. So they made it like this. That's the first new thing that I teach when I teach it. The first new thing is they use that, not that. And people use students. Sometimes I get, stuff, emails about that. Okay, so then effective. Effective. We're going to use a new component here. Now I said this in another class when I was talking to the class in the beginning. When I said effective, I said, is it easy to be honest? Is it easy to be truthful? Is it easy to be open? And I think you might have said it, because I said, is it easy to value truth above self-interest? And I think you might have said, hey, I like that, you said. Did you say, hey, value truth above self-interest?
Oh, yeah.
That's good, right?
Yeah.
I didn't just pull that out of the air. I got it from my critical thinking skills when I said that. Because I knew where we were going with this course, and I know that that's one of my favorite components of critical thinking. As a matter of fact, critical thinking and thinking about your thinking actually helped me get this job. Because when I was being interviewed by the head of the department, who was someone else, a doctor, I think what his name is, who interviewed me, the final interview for the job, we started talking about something about, I forget whether he brought it up, because I jumped on it. He said, and blah, 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 and we don't teach enough critical thinking in this college. He said that, so I said, I would agree with you on that, because I study critical thinking, and one of the things I like to do is bring that into the class, because I think it's important to teach our students to think about their thinking. He said, you're exactly right. And you're exactly right. And we spent the next couple of minutes bouncing around, because I said, I've learned through critical thinking it's more important to value truth above self-interest. And I rattled off a couple of things, and he knew what he was impressed. He was impressed that I knew what it was. I just said, I'm a critical thinker. People say, yeah, I'm a critical thinker. I can, I figure stuff out. I'm pretty good at figuring stuff out. Like, I can tell when somebody's not telling me the truth and they're full, No, that's not what it is. Critical thinking is what? Thinking about your thinking. Thinking of analyzing and figuring out your thought process and how you can apply that process to helping, in this case, helping our patients. And can we help them? Yes. And we'll do it. And can we use these skills in other areas? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Because it says here on the top of the thing, this is one of the quotes, a great many people think they are thinking when they are merely rearranging their prejudices. So I'm going to get into that more when we talk about the cultural competence. But when people think about their thinking, they're switching their opinions around to fit in with what they want to do. I want to do this, so I'll switch my opinions around to make it okay for me to do this. Even though that might not be the best thing to do, but that's what I really want to do. I really want to go to California. I really want to do this, right? And remember I told you, Al Capone said, I never killed anybody who didn't deserve it. Right? That's how we call it cognitive dissonance, or that he rearranged his thinking to make it okay for him to commit murder.
Is that rationalization?
Well, rationalization, yes, is one way of doing it, but when you do it before, but when you do it after, or like you do something to hurt somebody's feelings, or you do something bad to somebody, and people will say, well, he deserved it.
Right.
okay? So that makes it okay that you slit his tires.
Of course.
Okay, they deserved it, okay? So that's cognitive dissonance where you're not gonna say, I'm gonna slit his tires because he deserves it. You act on an emotion and a feeling, you went and slit somebody's tires, and then as you're walking away, you start to feel a little bad maybe, and you say, yeah, well, he deserved it, you know, or she deserved it. And I'm just using that as an example, but that's what critical thinkers don't do that. You snap decision, you made it, and you hurt somebody, and did something bad, and, you know, John Dillon just said, they said, why do you rob banks? And he said, because that's where the money is, right? That's why I rob banks. They got the money, I want it, you know, give me the money, you know? Because that's where the money is. He's not going to go into a little grocery store and there's no money there. The banks got the money, so that's what I'm going to rob. That's how they, so that wasn't a critical thinker. Okay, so these are just some examples of people who don't do it the proper way. Okay? Let's just cover this section and then we can finish off on that on Thursday because I know the other people went to all of these. So, okay, the under effective. Value truth above self-interest, very, very important. The truth is what counts. Accepting change. Now, recovery is what? Let me hear it. I want to hear it with conviction for the record. Recovery is what?
A process of change.
Right, okay, it's a process of change. So we want to accept change. Our patients have a problem sometimes accepting change. Okay? But us as critical thinkers, in your personal life, are you changing? Are you evolving? Or I studied developmental psychology, and the bottom line of it was, we continue to develop through lifespan development, through our whole lives. We just keep, right till the, you know, there's always new information, there's always new stuff to learn. We continue to develop. Is that a question, Maria?
Yeah,
Yeah,
would this
okay.
be coincide with the same as behavioral component, meaning modifying judgments in light of new information, kind of continuous learning and growth, or no?
Say that again?
I'm just asking if it would be the same as accepting change as in the behavioral component, modifying judgments in light of new information.
Yes,
continuous
yes.
learning and
Well,
growth.
behaviorally we can do it, but effectively to accept the change is a little bit different because that might be a little bit more. That might be actually harder to do. So for us psychologically or mentally to wrap our heads around the change, or when we talk about those spiritual principles, acceptance, to accept it might take a little more time. You can, okay, it exists and I'll recognize it and you're looking at it, but to accept it, that's a better thing, and accept it and do it, that might take a little more time to do inside, inside your head. And acceptance is one of the spiritual principles of programming, what we do like that. So to accept something might take a little bit more time. Empathizing, what's that?
Putting yourself in their place.
Critical thinkers appreciate and try to understand others' thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Non-critical thinkers view everything and everyone in relation to themselves. Who does that?
Selfish person.
Yeah, a selfish person evaluates everything that relates to them, okay? But to be empathizing is to relate to the other person, in this case our patient, and how it affects them, which is different than sympathetic, because you're not going to get emotionally involved, because we don't do that. We have a little professionalism, but we have an empathize with where they are coming from, what's going on with them, how can we help them, how can we acknowledge where they are, and help them acknowledge where they are and how to get out of that situation. Welcoming divergent views. Again, we're open to divergent views. It's not, we've heard this one, it's my way
Or the highway.
or the highway, okay? That person is not a critical thinker, okay? You have to recognize divergent views. Tolerating ambiguity. What the heck does that mean? Huh? Don't be ambiguous. Although formal education often trains students to look for a single right answer, critical thinkers recognize that many issues are complex, intricate, and subtle, and that complex issues may not have a right answer. They recognize and value qualifiers such as probably, or it's highly likely, or not very likely. So you can, you can be ambiguous or something. Well, it's not very likely that that will work, or there's a probability that could be. You have to accept that there's not this
There's not
or
a
that.
clear cut.
Okay?
It's not a clear cut.
It's not clear cut a lot of times. It's not this or that, left or right, up or down. You have to recognize that there's some ambiguity in the world, and you have to be, that's probably the best thing to do. Let's look at it a little more closely. It could work, but let's see, if there's other options. You have to recognize the ambiguity.
No gray
Not-
area.
Huh?
No gray area.
Yeah, there's a gray area. Let's look at it a little more closely. Not jump into this or jump into that based on a snap decision because let's just get it over with and get it done. You have to be able to tolerate that. Could be, well, let's be sure, let's check it out a little bit more. And recognizing personal bias. Now, we're gonna touch on that more when we get to the cultural competence. But then we're going to get into our recognizing our own biases and the difference between bias, prejudice, racism, all these other personal views that we have and how we can be more enlightened when it comes to that. I got a whole other thing on that. So this other part, the cognitive component, we'll cover on Thursday. And there'll be other people there, but we've got it on video to show them. So, is there any questions now about this, what we just covered today?
No.
So does everybody understand that this is something, like a skill, that this is something that you're going to use in your professional career, in your personal life? And you're going to develop it, and it's going to, it's going to make your decision-making process and your professional decision-making process, creative problem solving is going to be very, very helpful as you move forward in your careers because you can have a lot more information as to, how to apply critical thinking skills. Any questions? Okay, so let's just turn that off. Thank you, my students.